they've now got a 3-month leadership contest. So essentially the nominations open tomorrow. You need the backing of 10 MPs to get to the first round. Then it will be narrowed down to 4 by the MPs. Then those 4 will address the great and the good, and then we're going to narrow down to 2, and then it's going to be put to the members to vote. John Rentoul was saying, what a terrible system.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the first stack of the election sort of leadership contest will be up to the MPs. It seems like they have the whip hand, and then it will be put through to the members after that. But then the MPs can model exactly who they want to become leader and actually put in front of them. You know, 2 candidates who perhaps are from the right wing of the party. A lot of it will depend on
2 centrists.
2 centrists. But the MPs first of all can whistle it down to the 4. Then they're going to whistle it down to the 2. But I think the next week or so will be quite interesting to decide who can actually get that 10 votes, those 10 MPs to get behind them, because there aren't that many MPs around.
Point. That is exactly the point. There aren't many left.
Yeah, no, exactly. If you've only got 130 odd Tory MPs. It might be that there's a groundswell behind 1, 2, 3 candidates, which leaves a few of them sort of kicking their heels and wondering where they're going to get some support from.
So Mel Stride, the latest, to test the waters, let's say. I'm considering my options.
Yeah, no, exactly. There's a couple of them on that sort of side, I'd say, are going to struggle to get the 10. Maybe Mel Stride, who's given sort of an understanding that he may be thinking about it. Kevin Hollinrate was mentioned over the weekend as well. What you've got to remember as well, a lot of these people will be doing it just to get a position in that shadow cabinet and to give themselves a decent opportunity to actually, just to raise their profile a little bit.
Well, that's very true. I mean, it's interesting. So if they go and veer centre, and we're talking about people like Tugendhat, for example, and this is the front page of the Express, Farage, more Tory MPs will soon defect to Reform. He believes that more Tory MPs will go to Reform within the year. And I assume what he's saying is essentially it depends on the direction of the Conservative Party.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you end up with someone like Robert Jenrick as leader, I think he will sort of probably just sort of stem it a little bit and make sure that no one peels off towards Reform. But on the other hand, if you end up with Robert Jenrick, who's been quite hard line on immigration, you might end up with some people on the One Nation's side and say, actually, I can't deal with this, because you may be thinking about leaving the European Convention of Human Rights to toughen up immigration laws, bring back Rwanda or what have you. And then you might have some people peeling off towards the Liberal Democrats or Labour. So actually, they're in a little bit of a lose-lose situation, actually. Yeah. So they've got to pick the right person. And looking at the list, it seems like the person who might emerge from this is into the final 2: Robert Jenrick, Kemi Badenoch. I think Suella Braverman will have a go. I don't think she's.
She will have a go.
Yeah, she will have a go. I don't think she's going to get much support. She's actually always struggled in these leadership contests. So I think as it gets whittled down to sort of less and less names, you sort of feel like she's going to really struggle.
So that's interesting. So Nigel Farage says about Suella Braverman, he's open to you
and you can see if in terms of Suella Braverman's point of view, the wrong person becomes leader. You can see her going off to Reform. But I think the interesting thing is, do they go for a caretaker type leader for 2 years? Do they just have someone in place? Maybe someone like steady the ship. Someone like Priti Patel. She's been trying to sort of appeal to the whole of the party. She wasn't too outspoken during the election campaign, and you just wonder whether because you do wonder actually whether the person who becomes leader this time isn't the leader at the next election. So this almost feels like a 2-3 year job, and then they can work out where the Labour Party are, how well Keir Starmer is doing, and then they can work out how they attack Labour from there.
So that's really interesting. And I said earlier on, the Conservative Party isn't one party, it's 5-6 parties. Whether you've got the New Conservative Growth Group, you've got people like that, the ERG and all the rest of it. So what you're saying is maybe they stick someone in who tries to hold the coalition together.
Yeah, they just need to work out who they are. You also I take you back to a long time ago, 1997, when you had William Hague became leader. Right person, wrong time. Would it have been better if they had someone like Michael Howard as leader, just to steady the ship, and then they work out who they are to attack Blair in 2001? That's probably where they went wrong then, and do they want to make the same mistakes again?
Let's talk about the front page of the Mail now. Big story this morning. We've been talking about loads of people getting in contact about this. This is it here. Now Labour opens the door to giving asylum to 70,000 people. This is all about the illegal migration bill that was passed. There are 120,000 people who the last government said would never be allowed to settle here. And now we've got Yvette Cooper saying, well, we're going to process them. And the worry is we're going to allow 70,000 people, like maybe 90,000 people into this country. We don't know their background or anything about it. Is this overblown?
No, I don't think so, actually. I think that what Labour, the point they're trying to make is all the people who came in from March 2023 when this Illegal Migration Act was passed, they're stuck in a limbo. So it's the best way to attack this. Get rid of some of them who can return to safe countries, or do they just stay here? There was absolutely no chance of 100,000 people going to Rwanda. I know the system they said was uncapped, but in reality they could cope with hundreds and hundreds of people rather than thousands and thousands. Now the Refugee Council, the respected Refugee Council who come up with these figures, of the 100,000 or so who are actually going to be in the system, based on sort of the extrapolation of the figures and those who were granted asylum beforehand, they say around 70,000. Now, there's going to be a big debate in the House of Commons today. It's going to be a debate, the Home Affairs bit of the King's speech that we heard last week. It's going to be Yvette Cooper up against James Cleverly again today. Wow. And he is going to say it's going to be closer to 90,000. So there's whatever it is, it looks like there's going to be a biggish number. Now, the key point that James Cleverly was trying to make yesterday, there are some countries you just cannot do returns deals with. Iran, Syria, Afghanistan. So he's making the point, oh, Yvette Cooper, are you going to be doing a deal with the Ayatollahs of Iran? Are you going to be doing a deal with Afghanistan? Of course not. So where do these people, I think there's 12,000 people stuck in the system from those three countries. Who are you going to be doing, who are you going to be talking to and opening negotiations with? Because you're going to have to find a home for them, and it could well be here if you can't send them anywhere else.
And of course, no deterrent now. Rwanda's scrapped, and we've seen, 2,258 migrants have come across since Labour.
No, exactly. So the Conservatives will say, well, of course Rwanda costs a lot of money. It was just trying to get it up and running. You didn't give it a chance to work. Now, there was one flight scheduled. I'm looking at the date. It would have been for tomorrow. It
was.
So what the Labour are going to try and do is get some flights off to Vietnam. Now, there won't be tomorrow. So they're going to schedule a flight to get, I think it's 40 or 50 people coming who've come here to actually get it out there. So they've scrapped Rwanda. But Vietnam seems to be there's been a huge influx of people coming across here on small boats from Vietnam, so they see that as a problem. And if they can just get one plane off the ground, it looks like they're doing something.
It does indeed. Now, there were great scenes in the House of Commons yesterday because Keir Starmer forgot who the Prime Minister was. Take a look.
Work with others, and in relation to the particular point, the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, old habits die hard.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it is very easy to do. The amount
it is so easy.
The amount of times I think, oh, Yvette Cooper, Shadow Home Secretary, and she's clearly not. She's Home Secretary. So I think it just takes a few weeks to get used to. It does.
You know, at home I've got a list of who's in which position because I can't remember where they all are.
Yeah, no, exactly. And there was a few, people lost their seats in the Labour shadow cabinet before they became, got into government. Thangham Debonair. So there's a few reshuffles. So it just, and then you've got all the junior ministerial positions. So it just takes time to get used to.
Yeah, it really does. And just very quickly, of course, the government has real problems on its hands, I think, in terms of net zero, because it says they need to take on net zero NIMBYs because they're going to put all these cables and pylons, renewable energy, offshore, and people are not very happy about that. And I was saying earlier, there's this real dichotomy where in public, all the Labour MPs are saying, oh, yeah, absolutely, we need green energy. But when it's their constituency, when it's their constituents who say, I'm really unhappy about it, then they have to stand there and say, well, actually, I'm not in favour.
Exactly, and it's going to be a big thing. Labour was saying last week that it's a question of how, not if, these big infrastructure projects actually get across and they happen. But if you're going to try and reach those targets to get to decarbonisation by 2030, you need big pylons, you need big energy projects to actually get there. But again, when it happens in your own backyard, they're going to be could well be the first people to say, actually, we don't want it near us.
Well, absolutely right. And of course, this double speak about local communities can have a say in what they want, but they can't actually, because we're going to override you anyway. Thanks ever so much for coming in, Ryan. Ryan Sabey there, Deputy Political Editor of The Sun.